In this podcast, I'll talk about 3 hugely important things they don't teach you, and especially artists in general, in schools. Why you need to learn about these, and how to learn these, and why this is especially relevant for artists. Lastly, I will hypothesize on why they don't teach you these things. Welcome to the Practice Drawing This podcast, designed to listen to while drawing. Also go to the website for the weekly thought-provoking newsletter with optional drawing exercises. Thing number 1 they don't teach you at school. When I went to Art Academy long ago, they tried to teach me to become a painter. I realized after 3 years that I wanted to be an illustrator type of artist instead, drawing rather than painting. But I learned a lot. I went meta on what I learned there and analyzed what we learned and how. We drew or painted every day. We studied the fundamentals like composition, perspective, anatomy and dexterity, which is control over the drawing tools and such. And we copied the masters. We learned the conventions and a canon of masterpieces of the genre. And I realized after a while that you can generalize that. The schema for learning to paint was 1. Practice every day, fill sketchbooks, paint. 2. Study the fundamentals, perspective, anatomy, composition, color theory, etc. Number 3. Dexterity, improve the precision of your hand. Number 4. Copy the masters, not to create sellable product, of course, but to learn from them. Number 5. Learn the conventions, the canon of masterpieces. This typically holds when you want to work in a specific genre. Audiences have expectations for genres. If you want to draw manga, for example, it pays to have read the canon and to know the conventions of the genre. Look at your work critically and figure out ways to improve is number 6. And I realized that you can learn any craft by following that schema. For example, if you want to learn to play the piano, you have to practice every day. That's number 1. Number 2, you study the fundamentals. For example, you learn to read sheet music, you learn to play the chords, you learn music theory. Number 3 is you train your dexterity by playing the keys. Number 4 is you copy the masters like Bach and Mozart by practicing their sheet music. Number 5 is you learn the conventions and canon of masterpieces. And number 6, you again look critically at your work and figure out ways to improve it. If you want to become a designer, you have to, again, 1, practice every day, making the designs in your sketchbook. Number 2, study fundamentals like typography, but also composition rules like grids, alignment, proximity, contrast, repetition, design of shapes, negative shapes. And number 3, you work on your dexterity. Number 4, you copy the masters. For example, you copy typography. Number 5, you learn the conventions and canon of masterpieces, learning about the design movements like Bauhaus and modern design trends. This is especially important in design because a style conveys genre and you want the piece to communicate that. A book cover, for example, should convey the genre of the book, so it should be designed with that in mind. Even typography choice is influenced by how the type was used in the past, because seeing that type will make people think of the use in the past. For example, the type used on the Obama poster will be associated with that poster for a long while into the future. And number 6, you again here also look at your work critically and figure out ways to improve. No matter if you want to learn to cook Thai cuisine or you want to become good at a certain sport, you can apply the schema to all of these and learn that skill. If you want to become a writer writing novels or a writer writing screenplays, those same things hold. The same schema can be used. This schema can even benefit you when you try to do things like writing newsletters or making YouTube videos or podcasts. Practice every day, study the fundamentals, dexterity, look at your work critically and figure out how to improve, copy the masters, learning the conventions and canon of masterpieces. If you grasp this schema, you can learn how to learn autonomously by yourself without the need to go to courses or to go to an academy. It's about learning how to learn any skill. It's a shame they don't teach you this at school. It's a way to learn any craft. It could help you greatly in life. You can learn any skill this way, and we need to learn many skills. Healthy cooking and working out, for example, are crucial for our health. Top athletes sometimes film themselves so they can study their motion and figure out how to improve. Writers will put away a manuscript and edit it later, taking a critical look at your work and figuring out how to improve it. Right now, most people think that being able to make art is a talent, something you're born with, not something you can learn and become good at through following such a schema. Naturally, the schema for learning any craft is crucial to know for any artist. This is how you become better at any art form. Thing number 2 they don't teach you at school. My daughter has to do reading comprehension at school. This entails reading an article, then thinking about what they already knew about the subject, visualizing it, predicting what will happen, and thinking up questions they think the article raises. And that's all good. They learn to read a newspaper, they learn to stay informed about things that play in society so that they can have an informed vote at elections. But they miss one crucial addition: juxtaposition. When you combine two unrelated things and try to make the combination make sense, you sometimes arrive at surprising results. This is creativity, coming up with new things. The Zettelkasten method is about storing ideas on index cards in a filing cabinet. But the most important aspect of the Zettelkasten is, each time you add an idea, find as many connections as possible to previous ideas. It's these combinations of existing ideas to this new idea that lead to a new perspective on things. Editorial cartoonists do that a lot. They will read today's headlines and see if a juxtaposition of two headlines leads to an interesting perspective, perhaps an irony that reveals a certain politician is a hypocrite. Creativity is also about letting your subconscious do its work. You may have noticed that when you are doing something that requires little mental effort, suddenly a solution to a problem you were struggling with pops up in your head. That is a part of it. When you want to find a creative solution for a problem, you first gather as much information as you can and you mull it over. When you get stuck, you go do something else, something that requires little mental effort. Maybe you go shopping or maybe you go work out. Chances are a solution pops into your head while you're doing that other mindless thing. That was your subconscious at work on that problem. As for example, again, if editorial cartoonists are banging their head against the wall trying to come up with a cartoon based on today's headlines, it pays to do something else for a while, but not too long. There is a deadline, and then, boom, an idea appears out of nowhere. I think I don't need to explain why creativity is important for artists. You want to make new, original things. You mostly do that by juxtaposing unrelated things to see what comes out, and then letting your subconscious come up with new solutions. Thing number 3 they don't teach you at school. You may think this does not apply to you, but hear me out. If you want to do something bigger, you tend to need to work with other people, and this is and of itself also a skill. People sometimes get promoted to management inside companies and soon realize or think that management isn't for them. That's the same as people trying to draw and then thinking they don't have a talent for it and stopping immediately. It's a craft you can learn. It is a decidedly different skill, but also very fun and rewarding. If you are a designer and you get promoted to design manager or art director, you suddenly have to deal with people, which is decidedly different from designing. You have to develop a vision where you want to lead the team, and then you have to be able to explain it to them and convince them that it is a superb goal to pursue. You have to make sure that the people who work for you have the resources they need to do their jobs. You have to keep them happy, but you also need to keep the people above you happy and the people who are on your level and who don't report to you, but who you do need to get things done. And you have to communicate with the rest of the company, get buy-in from them, and you have to do risk management, which means figuring out what can go wrong, figuring out which of the risks are the most important ones for you to focus on right now, and do things to mitigate those risks so that you don't have to end up extinguishing fires at the end of the project. It's useful to do role-playing to see how you interact with other people and how you can improve that. This is decidedly different from creating things as a programmer or a designer or an artist, but if you get into the flow, It can be hugely rewarding when a team gels and beautiful things start to come out. These management skills are things you can learn, but which they don't teach you in school, which is really a shame. There is a shortage of people who can be great leaders or managers. The world would be a better place if there were more people who could actually do it well. So why don't they teach you these things? I think the reason they don't teach you these things at school is that they are preparing you to become a well-behaved little worker in the industry. You need to learn to read and write and to do math. You need to learn to faithfully follow orders and do as the teachers and later your bosses say. For that, there is no need to be able to learn the skill autonomously. There is no need to learn how to be creative. Companies don't want you to be creative. They want you to do as you're told. And they don't need you to learn management skills and leadership skills. They teach you to do as you're told. Think about it. They don't teach you any of the techniques you need to start projects or companies on your own. They don't teach you how to learn a craft by yourself. They don't teach you how to be creative. They don't teach you leadership skills so you can lead a team in bigger, more challenging projects. All they teach you is how to be faithfully following orders and do as you're told. And they teach you generally useful skills like reading, writing, and basic math. Learn the first one, learn how to learn a skill, and you can learn the third one, how to manage and lead people by yourself, because leading and managing is also just a learnable skill. You only really need to learn the first two, because management and leadership skills can also just be learned on your own. Then you can learn any skill. You can become any type of artist you want, take on any project you want, even if it means creating or working with a team. I hope you had a fun drawing session, and I hope you check out my other podcasts next.